Welcome to the Science of CX podcast. My name is Steve Pappas, a former serial entrepreneur turned CX obsessed expert. And each week we bring you an inspiring message and insight into how customer experience can catapult your business to soar, grow, and accelerate beyond what you thought was possible. We seek out experts to interview and help you on your journey to CX in the science of CX. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Science of CX. I'm Steve Pappas, your host. Today we have another interesting show for you. We have a guest on today, and as you guys know, we look for experts in all areas that are operating in the CX continuum. And today is no exception. We have David Wachs from Handwrytten. And I'm going to let David tell you about what it is that he really does at Handwrytten. But suffice it to say, you're in for a treat for something that is very customer focused and customer centric. So David, welcome and thanks for joining us today on the show.
Steve, it is absolutely my pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, it's ours. So let me let our listeners know a little bit about you. So David's a serial entrepreneur, and his latest venture, Handwrytten, is bringing back the lost art of letter writing through scalable, robot-based solutions that write you notes in pen. Developed as a platform, Handwrytten lets you send notes from your CRM system like Salesforce, the website, apps, or other integrations, right? So this is really interesting because, prior to this, David has had another business called Cellit, and he founded that, which was a mobile marketing platform and mobile agency. And Cellit became a leading player in the mobile marketing space in general, used by some of the biggest brands out there. David's also a frequent speaker on mobile technologies, and he's presented for Direct Marketing Association, South by Southwest, the Advertising Research Foundation, and many, many others. He also writes for Inc. magazine with his column Stepping Away from the Day-to-Day. So we're gonna jump into this because I find this fascinating. And the reason why I find it fascinating, and some people would just call me old school, but I call it doing things on behalf of your customer that make a difference and differentiate you. Is that if you can give them something that feels, looks, and gives the image that you took a little extra time, that makes the difference. Remember, we always talk about how inventory and pricing and availability and all of those things are known today. But the difference really is how you serve your customer, how you communicate with your customer or over communicate with your customer, and how you treat them. So David, thanks again. And maybe what we get started with is what was the trigger for starting this company, Handwrytten?
Thank you so much. Yeah. So Handwrytten and Cellit, the prior venture, are kind of totally linked. Cellit was all about sending text messages and MMS. It predates the iPhone. So this is when text messaging was really big before it moved to push notifications and all that. And I did that from 2005 to 2012, 2014, when I finally exited the company. But near the end, I realized that I was influential in creating a monster. I'm not taking too much credit for it. I mean, we were a big in the space, but compared to everything going on, we were tiny. And what I mean by this is the amount of electronic communication everybody gets during that period of 2005 to 2014 or 2012 or whatever skyrocketed it as it did now. I mean, every day I've gotten, and what Cellit did was not text spam. Everything was opted in, but just this morning I've gotten 3 text spams, but the average office worker today gets 147 emails a day. They get the average 35 to 44-year-old gets 1,600 texts per month. And if you go a little bit younger, 18 to 24, they get about 4,000 per month. So I was part of that, right? I was creating those 4,000 text messages that you'd get from brands like Abercrombie and Fitch and Toys R Us. And what I realized through that was it's all just noise. After a while, it all just becomes noise. And I get so many emails a day that it's like, if you email me, it's funny, I'm part of this management group, this Vistage thing. And the Vistage has leaders that kind of run the management group. And the leader says, if you want to get my attention, if you want to get a hold of me, do not email me, call me or text me, because I can't check my emails. There's too many. And that's where we're at, is digital messaging is getting lost in the shuffle. And even if that digital message, that email or that text or that tweet or that Facebook or that Slack or whatever it is, looks totally personalized to you, and it says, "Dear Steve, thank you so much for your purchase of that whatever, that leather designer backpack, blah blah blah," and it goes on, goes on, goes on. Or in your case, Steve, that wonderful guitar or whatever. You read that whole letter and it looks completely real. You know in your head, despite the fact that that thing looks totally real, you know that that was written by some algorithm and then pumped out in an email blast, 10,000 times over.
Sure.
So what I tried to do the day after I left, so then when I was leaving Cellit, I wanted to send something memorable to my employees and my customers. And I sat down with pen and paper and I started writing handwritten notes to each of them. And I did this because when I walked around my salespeople's office and my office, I looked around my office, I noticed that when I got a handwritten note, which was rare, it was not only read, but it was kept. It was kept like a treasure on my bookshelf or at home. So some people magnetize them to their fridge or whatever. Handwritten notes get kept. So I sent handwritten notes to my employees and my customers, or at least I attempted to. And then after about number 20, I said, well, I guess I only have 20 customers that are worth sending handwritten notes to, because my hand is too tired and I've got other things I got to do. So that's kind of where handwritten came from, is I thought, gee, there has to be a better way to communicate to people now that the email electronic channel is just overwhelmed. So because of that overwhelming nature, what really stands out is when you get something that's thoughtful through a handwritten note. And that's what I tried to recreate. Now, even though it's thoughtful, nobody has the time to sit down and do 20 of these or 50 of these or 100 of these. So what do? You either get somebody to do it for you, or you find a company like Handwrytten. And what we do is we use robots to write these handwritten notes, and they're actual robots. We give tours of the facilities here when a pandemic isn't going on, but we're a very vertically integrated organization. So in one room, we build the robots, then we bring them over to the other side where they're put into work. We don't sell them or anything like that. They're just built for us. And they sit there with a real ballpoint pen and they write your handwritten note to your customer. And then we put it in a handwritten envelope. And there's stats about handwritten envelopes getting a much higher open rate than standard envelopes. We put a real pen on it, a real stamp on that, and then we mail it on your behalf. So the entire thing looks completely organic down to that sticker stamp.
That's interesting. It's interesting because I think about all of us in business, and as well as all of our listeners, whether they're in the C-suite or they're entrepreneurs. We're all looking for things that make us stand out. We're all looking for the things that are differentiators. And this really strikes me as something that, even though some will say, well, gee, we're not going back to handwritten notes, maybe we should. So I guess, let's think about what the core problem is here that you're solving, right? We always look at the core problems in the dimensions of either time or effort or money, right? Mm-hmm. So, how is the core problem here? What is the thing that you're trying to solve aside from the differentiators? It would appear to me that you're solving the time problem, one, but you're definitely solving an effort problem for the person that really wants to have that differentiator. And of course, it costs money, but it's a lot less money than if you did it.
Exactly. If you did it, or if you hire interns to do it, or anything else. And what we're able to do, so yeah, I think what we're really solving for is that differentiator of being able to get in front of a customer when otherwise it just goes in the email heap. And then we're solving for ability, because if I was a big company and I said, okay, I want to send Steve Pappas a note that talks about his specific guitar, and then the next note talks about something else, and the next note talks about something else, it would be impossible to keep that all straight, or to set up an quote unquote algorithm to do that, where what we're doing now, we do that every day. It's quite simple through Zapier or through API or even just through Excel uploads. People can create very customized notes to individuals and really hyper customize that handwritten note prior to it going out. And what we're seeing from this is a viral aspect. So these notes create so much amazement that which is ridiculous. Like you said, well, maybe we should go back to handwritten notes. Well, if we all went back to handwritten notes, I wouldn't have a business, because we now stick out because nobody's doing this, right?
Right.
And if everybody was just sending handwritten notes again, it wouldn't be unique, and then I'd be selling you email, because email would be unique at that point. But these notes are so unique that people take photos of them and they put them on Instagram and Twitter, and they're tweeted out and everything else. I don't want to get too far ahead or behind or whatever, but we also do this for inbox experiences. So we worked with a major online mattress brand, and they used to, and I'll talk about that in a second. They used to include a handwritten note with each mattress. So you'd open up that online, one of those foam mattresses that explodes in your home once you open up the box. But when you'd open up that box, at the top of the box would be a very nice folder. You'd open up that folder, and inside would be a handwritten note saying, thank you so much for your purchase. We hope you get a great night's sleep. And then below that would be a doodle. So there'd be a little hand drawing of somebody sleeping in a bed, dreaming of a cat or stars and the moon, or we had a whole bunch of different doodles that we'd include on these cute notes. And the whole thing there was creating an Instagrammable, unique, shareable moment where you not only did you get that handwritten note and you're amazed, and that note was really the gift. Like, you didn't have to include a coupon or anything else. Just getting that note was the gift. But what was interesting was they did tens of thousands of these notes with us, and then they stopped. And I called the company, obviously, because they're a very good client of ours. I said, we noticed you're not placing any orders. And they said, oh, yeah, we used to do that when we were a small company, when we thought it was important to create a personal bond with the customer. Now we're just we don't care about that anymore. And I didn't know how to respond. I just, it's like, the sky is blue. No, the sky is purple or whatever red, and you just, okay, you see the sky as red, I see as blue. We're just in different universes. So I didn't know how to respond to that, and I've never had successfully got them back. They are now talking to us about coming back, hopefully. But it was just such a strange thing to say that, now we're at a point where we don't need to communicate to our customers because we're too good for that. And I found that very interesting. But when they were doing it, it was so cool and so unique, and you'd see it all over online. We have another customer that is a morning YouTube show. They do daily morning broadcasts on YouTube. I guess they're one of the biggest in the world. I didn't know who they were, but some of my employees did. And they started a fan club. And if you joined the fan club, one of the things you got was a handwritten note. They didn't alter the note at all, except for the name. So, dear Stephen, dear David, rest of the note identical, right? You go on Twitter, you see 5,000 of these pictures, each one identical, and you're just like, what a missed opportunity, I suppose. But I mean, also good for them. People love them. But everybody would put, just got my note, I'm so excited. And then the next person, yeah, I got my note too. And all these notes are identical, but it didn't even matter that they're identical. People got excited to receive these notes, because the average household now just gets like one or two pieces of handwritten mail per month, compared to everything else they get. So it really is a novelty at this point when they get a handwritten piece.
Yeah, it's interesting, because as you're talking about it, I'm thinking both B2C and B2B benefit by this, right? So if I'm selling to consumers, there's lots of points in the customer journey that it makes sense. But even in the B2B, I mean, the hardest thing these days is your biz dev group. It's, all the events are gone. So how are you filling your top of funnel these days, right? How are you getting past the gatekeepers, right? All of that gets answered to some degree, or gets enhanced to some degree by a handwritten note. I mean, think about it.
Absolutely. We're in a unique position because our product is the handwritten note, but I've attended when there was such a thing as a trade show. The most important thing to me was not going to the trade show. It was getting the attendee list prior to the trade show.
Right.
Because then what we would do is we wouldn't get a booth. If we could buy the attendee list without getting a booth, we wouldn't buy a booth. And we would just mail to each of those attendees who, the ones we wanted to speak to, a handwritten note and say, we're going to be at the show. Let's meet in the lobby for a drink. I had so many meetings that I'd have to cut certain meetings short, which was horrible, to go to the next meeting. So, because in the end, everybody's a consumer, whether they work at a business or they shop at a store, they're still a consumer. I have a friend, Brian Kramer, that started this whole, it's not B2C or B2B, it's H to H, human to human. And so, these handwritten notes get through. And what we find is when we send handwritten notes to our prospects, we'll send them emails, follow up after we send the handwritten note, and then maybe another handwritten note a few months later. And then we'll get a phone call like a year later saying, hey, I have your handwritten note sitting on my desk. It's been sitting on their desk for a year, and that's what's so nice about handwritten notes, potentially, is they can literally stand up on the desk. Depending if you want a flat 5x7 card, sure, it might get lost on their desk, which could also have some benefit. But otherwise, it could be a folded card that's literally standing up or popping up on their desk, and that has huge value for brand recognition and retention, over time. This is a B2C example, but I had a client, and I thought it was a lawyer. I didn't know who it was. The name of the company sounded very lawyer-like, but it turned out it was a piano tuner. And they go into people's homes once a year. And every time they go and they tune a piano, they've automated it so it sends a handwritten note. I was talking to the owner because he had just some technical questions, and I ended up on the line. And I said, well, how do you like the service? He goes, it's great. I just went into a house that I had tuned their piano a year ago, and the handwritten note I sent them a year ago was still on their fridge, stuck to their fridge. So, clearly, for better or worse, not enough people are doing this. And it's really an opportunity to make a wow moment with your customer, whether you include that in the box of the product, or you send it before or after the purchase, or you send it, through Zapier and some of these other tools. You could do stuff like threshold matching. So I buy dog food from you. Once I buy a total of $500 worth of dog food, maybe it takes 4 months to get there, then I'm going to get a handwritten note saying, hey, you've been such a great customer. You've just purchased your $500 worth of dog food. Thank you so much. Or maybe you do it after the first purchase, then after a threshold, and then, on the anniversary. And we can help you set up all those touch points where, you send an email, but you also send a handwritten note, because that's really going to get through. We have other clients in the healthcare sector that an email just doesn't work at all, because these are older Medicare age clients or patients that they're trying to bring back in for care. And if you send them an email, or you even send them a junk mail piece, they're not going to open it. But it warms their heart to get a handwritten note from anybody. So at least they're going to open it, and then they'll see, oh, by the way, come on in and get your heart checked, or whatever that is. So it's very unique in that it can kind of span everything from B2B to B2C to B2P, I guess you'd call it, healthcare, business to patient. So there's a lot of opportunities to really get back to grassroots stuff. And nothing we're selling or that we're promoting has to do with us. I mean, you could do this manually. It's just going to be a whole lot harder.
Perfect. Well, I'm being told that I need to take a quick break to have a word from our sponsor. So we're going to be back in 45 seconds with David Wachs of Handwrytten.
Panviva has 25 years of empowering customer service, and we have deep expertise in how people actually use information, from our roots in learning and performance. We offer accurate, consistent information on demand to every channel. Most relevant knowledge at your people's exact moment of need. Integrated, streamlined internal processes. systems that deliver memorable and remarkable customer experiences that boost customer attention and loyalty every time, and knowledge that extends across your entire digital landscape. To learn more, visit Panviva at www.panviva.com.
And we're back talking to David Wachs from Handwrytten about some of the most interesting areas of not only marketing, but also in the customer journey. And David, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, as you're describing some of the examples earlier, have you mapped out various customer journeys in different businesses to determine at what points it may be more effective to send a handwritten note than any other method?
Well, my answer is going to be disappointing, but one of the issues with our business is, unlike an electronic communication where there's a feedback loop, there is a feedback loop with handwriting, but we're just not privy to it. So big brand will come to us, they'll say, hey, let's send handwritten notes to our customers. And then a couple weeks later, hey, let's send more. And then a couple weeks later, let's send more. And they keep, or they just set it up so it's dripping out. And we say, well, clearly this must be working because you're sending all these notes. And they say, oh yeah, it's working. But they don't provide us any data because we're not in the middle of that data, that feedback loop. So right now we're working with a debt relief company, which is about to become very big due to I have a feeling will be very big due to this whole pandemic. And they have told us that, yes, there is substantial ROI lift in reaching out to the customers that just submit their debt application by sending a handwritten note to close the deal. However, they're not disclosing anything past that. But what we would say is, let's look at the entire customer journey and not replace email, not replace printed pieces, but just pepper in handwritten notes across the entire journey. And we do think it makes sense from primarily just a thank you piece. So thank you for your business. Thank you for being a customer. And then, maybe after 2 or 3 months, a review piece if reviews are important. And that could be a Yelp review. It could be a G2 Crowd review if you're a business and you do Google or G2 Crowd as a review mechanism. We're doing a lot of that. Or an Amazon review. Amazon's getting a little bit more difficult because of how they provide the data to their customers. But we are doing a lot of those kind of review follow-up pieces too. We are looking more at customer journeys and productizing. It's interesting you asked that, Steve. We're looking more at productizing customer journeys right now. So we're starting with the automotive segment. So the problem with automotive dealers is they want to send handwritten notes. They know it's a great idea, but they just can't get around to it. And there's no system that's easy enough for them to do this. So what we're doing them is we're saying, okay, for a fixed price per customer of yours per year, we'll handle everything. And what does that mean? That means when they buy the car, they'll get a handwritten note thanking them. They'll get a second handwritten note saying, come in for an oil change or other service offer. Then they'll get a birthday card and they'll get a holiday card. So 4 touch points, $15 a year. That's it. Is it worth you, dealership, for handing this off for $15 for getting 4 touch points? Then the following year, it's not a thank you for your purchase. It's a anniversary purchase followed by a service offer, followed by a birthday, followed by a holiday card. That is it. So we are trying to move down that path to productizing the customer journey. But for now, for most of our customers, it's up to them to figure out what that perfect cadence is. And quite frankly, a lot of them could use your services or somebody like you to figure that out. And we need your assistance to figure that out too. But where we see the value is a thank you note is big. And people ask for the ROI, and it's hard for me to say, is there an ROI? I just know it's nice to send a thank you note. And then also those review offers, they do absolutely work. Where it gets a little bit more expensive is to do cold outreach. So if you're sending out a note to just cold to people saying, hey, we're opening up a store in your area or whatever, you have to pay for that database, which can be pretty cheap through a major database like a Velasys or somebody like that to get that database of postal information. But B, everything we send has a real 55-cent stamp on it. So forget about everything else. If you just talk about postage costs, it's going to be very expensive. But if you're offering something high value, it can really cut through that. And then if you're really doing a B2B thing where it's super high value, then obviously that investment, that 55 cents plus the cost of the card, is certainly worth it. You mentioned all trade shows are canceled this year. Right now we have ad campaigns going out just to that, which are, the ad campaigns say, hey, we're sorry we missed you, let's follow up. And we're targeting these ad campaigns at clients of yours so that they say, gee, I'm not able to go to this conference. Let's send out a handwritten note to everybody that I'm used to seeing at these conferences. This is usually the time when I meet with Jim Smith and Jane Doe. Let me send out handwritten notes to all of those people so they know we're still thinking about them, we care about them, and we want to get them on the phone for a Zoom call or whatever else. So we are doing a lot of that. I don't know if I'm answering your question at all, but the answer, I guess, in short, is we have not totally studied the right way to go about this. We just know that our clients are seeing an impact. Otherwise, they wouldn't stick with us for so long. There are a couple of really interesting cases that and these are more, just kind of one-off use cases. But we have a snack box company. So what they do is you would subscribe to their service, and then every month they'd send a snack box to your office. We actually get it here at Handwrytten, and it's fantastic. But what they found was if they screw up and send the wrong snack box to your office, they will then follow up with a handwritten note and the correct snack box apologizing for their screw up. So fixing that bad experience. And they find by doing that, they create a higher level of customer retention than never screwing up in the first place. Now, is it the handwritten note that helps, or is it the free swag and free snack box? I'd probably say, a lot of that is the free swag and the snack and the free snacks, but the handwritten note certainly doesn't hurt, and it reaffirms the value of them to you, or I'm saying that wrong, but the value of the client, it reaffirms that the client is valuable to the company sending the handwritten note or the snack box company. It makes you feel wanted and important. And the fact that, gee, somebody took the time to quote unquote send you a handwritten note, that's impactful. And that so what they started doing is screwing up on purpose, right? Like they'll send a snack box that's kind of off target, and then a couple weeks later they'll send you the right snack box and oh, we're so sorry for sending you the wrong snack box, and that's been very effective for them.
But we hope you got a chance to try our other snacks.
Exactly. They use that as an opportunity to
sure.
Yeah, exactly, to build awareness.
If you don't never have the opportunity to gain their loyalty, you don't know. So let me, if you don't mind, I'm going to geek out a little bit on you here too. Let's talk about fonts.
Yes.
Right? I lived years in the font business too. So, I understand the handwritten fonts, the male versus female, the slant left, slant right fonts. How do you guys decide how these notes are going to look? And do I choose whether or not there's a font or a specific font, or does it look like my terrible handwriting?
So let's get super geeky and just tell you that, for one, we can't use fonts because a font is an outline.
Okay.
So when you get into the super geeky technical nature of a font is the outline of a character. So it's not a T with two lines, it's a bubble surrounding a T. And if we were to write fonts onto our handwriting robots, you'd end up with a bunch of bubble text. So this company is 10 times more complicated than my last company because we had to come up with our own font engine. We can't just use OpenType and TrueType and all that stuff. But to your point, when we started, we took a bunch of off-the-shelf fonts that we could, and we converted them to our system. And now what we do is every employee at Handwrytten writes out their own handwriting, and we've added those to our platform of available handwriting. So we have older people, younger people, male, female. You get a wide variety there. And then if you want, you can actually submit to us your own handwriting, and we will create a handwriting style out of that. Now, when you do that, that is a big effort. It's not just sending us every letter of the alphabet in uppercase and lowercase. It's sending us 5 copies of every letter of the alphabet, because we want all the variation that you would do when you write out your writing, and that we randomize all the characters so that every A doesn't look like every other A. We also want ligature combinations, so 2 T's together, 2 L's together, 2 O's together, S is at the end of the word, S is at the beginning of the word. All these types of things, RS, R next to letters, that stuff like that. All these things create a much more realistic handwriting style for you. So if you go through that process with us, it's like a kindergarten worksheet that we have you fill out. We have you write all these words over and over again, these funny sentences, and then we have you write each letter individually. And then it's really an art where our employees that do end up learning quite a bit about fonts, because we have to create a font first and then convert it to our own proprietary system later. They put all this together and we create your handwriting, and it's expensive. It's $1,000 because of so much work. And if you don't want a full handwriting style, you can also just do just a signature. At first, I was kind of against signatures. I thought, well, if you write out a whole note, long form, you're not going to sign it. You'll just write your name. But some people want signatures, and they do look great. So we're doing signatures now too. And that's obviously much, much quicker and easier and less costly to do. But yeah, we have a lot of handwriting styles in our system, from CEOs of major companies to inventors, and all sorts of people decide their own handwriting. But regardless of if you choose one or you have one made for you, there's like 20 in our system that you could just choose from that are free to use.
Okay.
And they're named after my dog, my wife, my children, employees of the company, etc.
That's very cool. Well, the sheer fact that you've gone to those lengths to create a system that can take those kinds of issues into account, it goes a long way. I mean, that is the differentiator. And I was really, honestly, I was excited to have you on the show because, we've touched in this season a lot of areas of CX. We've touched how the customer experience is affected in many different. We've even had an improv guy on.
Yeah.
So, how do you incorporate improv and humor and empathy into the customer experience? So when I was telling you earlier that it's kind of a little MBA, a mini MBA in customer experience, this entire season is. And if you're going to go that far and really become a customer-centric, customer-focused, or customer-first organization, I can't see why you wouldn't want to give that extra level of service by providing a handwritten note to your customers and letting them know they're precious to you, letting them know how important they are, because it's something that they don't get from any other company that they deal with.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, and I truly believe it. We include gift cards, and we can include business cards, and now we're getting into fulfillment, so like books and stuff like that. If you have your own book and you want to promote it and send it out with a handwritten note, we do all that. But I really think the handwritten note itself is the gift, the quote-unquote gift,
right? Because
it is so rare these days. And it's not about even the pen on paper and the writing, although it is about that. But what it's really about, to your point, is the headspace and the time that I carved out time to think about you, the customer, or the contact, and sit down and think about you enough to spend 5 minutes and just write something unique to you, or what that looks like unique to you. Even if I do this for 500 people in my organization and I bulk upload a spreadsheet to handwrytten.com or whatever, it's still, I've taken the time to decide it is important to send these people a handwritten note. And it's funny, I was in a meeting with a cosmetic brand, and they said, the other equivalent of this is when you walk into a meeting and when you all sit down, you take out your cell phone and you put it face down on the desk so that I am not, or you put it in your pocket and you turn it off and then put it in your pocket. Because what's really rare these days is attention and time. It's really attention. I mean, I have my iPhone watch or my Apple Watch on, and it's beeping and buzzing every 10 seconds. Half the time I want to throw it across the room. Or, it's just, we're so inundated with distraction. To take your phone and turn it off and be present in a conversation is super unique. And the handwritten note is an extension of that, just not when you're face to face with somebody. It's saying, you are on my mind, and I'm going to spend 5 minutes thinking about you and only you. And that's the gift.
I can't think of a better way for us to end this episode, David. Thank you for joining us today. This has been a wonderful conversation around this. I really do appreciate it. Let's let folks know they can get in touch with you, of course, on LinkedIn, but they can go to your website at Handwrytten, HANDWRYTTEN.com. Handwrytten with a Y, not an I. And you could also see David's writings on Inc. magazine with his column, Stepping Away from the Day-to-Day. David, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Steve.
This has been great. And once again, I'm Steve Pappas, your host. That's another episode of The Science of CX. Until we meet again on another episode, stay safe, stay healthy, and everybody, please take care. You've been listening to The Science of CX. My name is Steve Pappas. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. And if you have, the highest compliment that you can give us is to subscribe, rate, and review The Science of CX. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.